Evie. She is a mother-son duo. Her son Marks is over there. If you could show.
Life takes softness and strength, especially now. Angel Soft is donating $1 million to families facing financial hardships with the Give Together Now initiative, and we pledge to match your donation up to $1 million more.
People that have been coming up have been very receptive of it, but they said, you know what, we hadn't been thinking about our hand cleanliness during this whole protest. There are other things that are more important, but they say once they did this, they said, you know what, it was a great service to all. To each other, how to be respectful and not racist. What are the conversations that you're having at home with Marks to make sure that he grows up to be someone who's not hateful?
Well, I don't really even have to because he is such a good-hearted person. But since he was little, we've talked about inequality and injustice, and he's gone with me to many protests, and his sisters have too, and we all just we try to treat others with compassion, and that's what I've tried to teach him.
Marks, have you seen any racist behavior towards people in your school maybe? Have you had to stand up for friends in the past?
At my school we've had some issues, but it's a community that also bands together. So I go to Bard College, and like Simon's Rock, they had a stabbing incident. Not an incident, but a bunch of people from the college went out.
Is that part of the reason why you're here tonight? What you've seen and experienced happen to your peers in school?
I'm here because I want to do the good in the world that I can do.
I love that. We need more joy and hope, and thank you for sharing this. Thank you for also supplying people with food and snacks and hand cleanliness along the way. Bruce, I want to let you know, this area was much more packed just a minute ago. We were really condensed, but there's plenty of room to walk around. There's a man who wants to come talk to me. Hello, sir.
Hi.
Where are you from?
I'm from West Virginia. I live in D.C.
Okay.
My name's Caleb Kane. I was featured in the New York Times. I was a former sympathizer of the alt-right. And basically, I was a white nationalist, if you were to add up all my beliefs. And I just want to talk to you to tell you about what's going on here today. And
Well, why are you here? Have you changed your belief system?
yeah, so
Why is that?
I changed my beliefs. I realized that what white nationalists do is they take their beliefs and they try to water them down to where they're more palpable to the mainstream public, and to the point where you'll see mainstream conservatives repeating their rhetoric. And we're even seeing that now with the current administration with Donald Trump. You've seen that with Stephen Miller being in the White House, and Steve Bannon was in the White House. And I just want to spread the message that white nationalists are injecting their rhetoric into the mainstream, and that they want to make a major political push for this country. And I think that's why everybody's here today, is because they're tired of that they're tired of that happening, and we need to push back on that. We all need to come together like we are here today.
Thank you so much, Bruce. I just got word that they are spraying people
up there. Silent, peaceful protest.
And
they're already
who was spraying? Was it
I have no
MPD?
idea. I was coughing. I can't
see, but people started coughing.
People started coughing.
And you've been watching Ardian Datil give us an update on the situation close to the Capitol there, as we've seen a number of demonstrators make their way to the Capitol as we approach the 7 o'clock hour. That is the hour at which the curfew will begin. And we expect, as we saw yesterday, police, both federal and local, to start to amp up their efforts to disperse the crowd. So let's check in now with John Henry. John, where are you? What are you seeing?
Hey, Larry. Right now, we're on Pennsylvania Avenue, leaving the Capitol building. We walked here probably about an hour ago, all the way from the White House, and a lot of the people in this group are heading back to the White House. There'll be hundreds of people who will add to the crowd that's already there right now. I got to say, when we were walking down this way, very peaceful. a bit serene, to be honest. Chants coming down Pennsylvania Avenue. It felt a lot like March for Our Lives a couple of years back as people headed to the Capitol building and then had peaceful demonstration on its grounds. Some people sat on its steps. But right now, as you can see, we're heading back to the White House grounds. I'm joined here by Lucky. Lucky, you've been out here for a while, obviously. Tell me, why are you out here? Why is this important for you to be out here?
Well, I actually just talked to my younger sister about this, and she was really telling me, Lexi, don't go. Stay in the house. I don't think you should be out there. Why do you need to go? And it's basically, I have younger siblings. I have a black mother, black father, black grandmother, and enough is enough. If we're not going to fight for our lives, if I'm not going to stick up for you guys, then who will? There's nobody else out here that will fight for us except for us. We have to learn to come together as one unit, continuously protest, continuously speak our minds and how we need to uplift our black community, continuously speak on the injustices that we continuously face, speak on disparities between the white and black community, the lack of money and funding to our education system, the injustices through our justice system, and so on and so forth. So I'm a little riled up. It's very emotional for me.
It's understandable, but are you optimistic with all the people that you see out here? 5 days in a row, hundreds to thousands of people participating in this, all colors. Are you surprised? Does that empower you?
It is very empowering, and it's also very emotional because we didn't have this for a long time. We didn't have a lot of people coming to our side screaming Black Lives Matter right along with us. And a lot of times it makes me cry because it's like, I'm not only seeing the protests going on within my city, but I'm seeing it in cities all over the country, all over the world, Berlin, the UK. You know, it's just very empowering and emotional to see that y'all are finally seeing the injustices that we always go through, the pain that we always go through on a continuous basis. So I'm very lucky and happy to see as many people out here, and I hope that they continue to come and fight.
I have one more quick question here for you. We're obviously heading back to the White House. You saw what happened in the White House yesterday. A lot of people in Washington took offense to what happened out there. React to that for me. How did you feel about the scene that you saw, and how do you feel going back to what could possibly be something like that after curfew?
I was hurt, and I was upset that I wasn't out there fighting along with my brothers and sisters. I was up until 5 o'clock in the morning trying to make sure that the 100 that were stuck in the houses that they had to run into because they were getting gathered up like cows ready to go to the slaughter. And I was just really upset and pissed off, and we were just trying to figure out what the hell was going on in our city. And it's just really upsetting and emotional for me.
I got you. Well, Lucky, thank you for your time here. Once again, I wanted to just give you, Larry, a visual in front of us here of just how many people are here on Pennsylvania Avenue, completely shut down right now by thousands of people who are walking once again back toward the White House. And now the big mystery for a lot of us who are in the crowd is what we're walking to. We're around that time yesterday where things got pretty hairy and tear gas was being sprayed on the crowd. We don't know what we're actually walking into. And to be honest, a lot of the officers and police who are there at Lafayette Square Park, who knows if they know just how many people are heading to them right now. But you can see that view right now down Pennsylvania Avenue. It is a sea of people. It's incredible to see in person here. Larry?
No doubt you can see the persistence there. John Henry, thank you so much. It's interesting when she talked about how this was a worldwide movement. The New York Times reporting today that there have been 140 demonstrations over cities throughout our country alone. She also talked about some of the demonstrations that we've seen across the pond as well in London and Berlin, just to name a few cities there. But no doubt this is affecting people all across the world. We even saw demonstrations take place in Australia as well. I want to bring back in Ariane Detail. And Ariane, when we talk about these demonstrations, speaking with folks on the ground, even as we come up about 20 minutes from when the curfew begins, they are not deterred. And from what we can see, they have no intentions on moving anywhere.
That's exactly right. I'm here with Mr. Cornelius right now. You've been here for many of the nights of this protest, but talk to me about what you just smelled come over and what you experienced the night before.
We just smelled, we could all smell some type of gas, something that caused everyone around us to cough. Several people are sneezing into their masks. Something clearly chemical is in the air. It's faint, but we can smell it. Prompted by seemingly nothing. We're all standing here. We've been here. We joined the march at 14 and you. We've been with them since the beginning. My boyfriend and I were here last night. It was totally peaceful. We were walking just past Lafayette Square. We were no more than 4 people back. No more than 4 people back. And the police rushed at the crowd of protesters. I'm a black man. I moved to Washington, D.C. on November 8th, the day that Trump was elected. Never in my life have I seen anything like that. Never in my life would I think that I am here today because I was here yesterday when that happened. What I saw, I never thought in my lifetime I would see something like that. It doesn't feel like something from civil rights. It feels like something before that.
Today is voting day. Have you
Yes.
cast your ballot, and has this experience impacted you in a way that will change your politics going forward?
Hard to tell for me. My boyfriend and I cast our mail ballots today, and I don't know that I have the words to say how I'm going to feel in the future, but I do know that man cannot be our president for the next 4 years. I know that to be true.
How do you feel as a black man? What are the conversations that you've had in your family with other young black men, and how to be safe in this time and age?
I'm a person, I'm multiracial. I don't always look, people can't always tell that I'm black, and that protects me. And it's horrible.
Do you feel a guilt about that? I've heard a lot of people talk about, because I don't present as black, I feel like I'm getting away with something.
Let me tell you, I'm from Oklahoma, but I attended the University of Alabama, and nobody in Alabama had any trouble identifying my race. Here, DC is so multicultural, it's a little bit different. I feel guilty. I felt strange yesterday walking through masked and with sunglasses, a crowd of people, and
It's overwhelming. What are you planning to do at 7 p.m.? Are you going to go home? Or are you going to remain past the curfew?
The people that I'm here with have decided to remain here past curfew. I don't know what that's going to look like. Who can say? That's not... Clearly we're being peaceful. That's evident. I've never done anything like... yesterday, I'd never done anything like this before yesterday. I wouldn't... Had I not experienced that yesterday, I would not be out here today.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
Because I've heard from a lot of people that they'll be here until justice is served. But what keeps you here is not that. What brought you out here in the first place?
Yesterday we were curious. We wanted to stand in solidarity with people, and we thought that the weather is beautiful. I mean, I've seen it on TV. I've seen this type of stuff for years, and I know it to be true. But experiencing it, I have to say, is wild. I'm here because I can't stay silent anymore.
It's real.
I'm not a naturally outspoken person, but I can't stay silent anymore.
Well, thank you for speaking to me tonight, sir.
Thank you for talking with me. I appreciate it.
And good luck tonight. Stay safe.
You too.
Bruce, this has been incredibly peaceful all day. I was in Bethesda earlier. I'm right here at 15th and H. His boyfriend just gave him a big hug and embraced him. I want to tell you, there's a lot of love in the air. Check this out, Ferlin. Oh, thank you. People are passing out hand sanitizer, making sure that we have
we
hand
see the hand
cleanliness
sanitizer
here.
being passed out there. Adiana, listening to your interview, I'm struck by a number of things. Primarily the fact that they recognize that this really is a long-term game. When we think about the advancements of civil rights in this country as it relates to African Americans, the abolition of slavery, when we talk about Brown versus the Board of Education, Loving versus Virginia, pivotal steps that have taken place both on a local and national level that have allowed for the advancement of African Americans in this country. And it looks like we will have yet another pivotal moment in this demonstration that we're seeing here today. Again, this is one of dozens that are taking place all across the country, even the world.
Statement necklace? Or let your neck make the statement.
Gold Bond Neck and Chest firms and repairs depleted skin. And new Neck and Chest Age Defense with SPF helps protect from visible signs of premature aging. Gold Bond, Ultimate Lotion, Ultimate Skin.
Department. From the people that you've spoken to today, do they feel like their demonstrations, what they've been doing over the past several days, that it's working?
Yes, Larry, it's been a mixed bag, I've got to be honest with you. Earlier today, I was around a lot of students from Walt Whitman High School in Bethesda, Maryland, and they felt like there wasn't enough happening, that while they want their voices to be heard and while they want this to be a moment in history that says, you know what, we were on the side of good, they just don't know yet, and we're waiting for the result of this. I think that's what a lot of people are waiting for. What is going to be the tangible evidence that what they did here, what they went through being tear gassed, what they went through being pushed back by police, what they went through by just being with one another, with their community members, they're waiting. And I think it's really hard to get a grasp of, did we do something that really made an impact yet? I haven't heard somebody say to me directly, you know what, I see the change already. It is election day, Larry. I know that a lot of people are calling for change in terms of how they're voting. Mail-in voting has been a big topic that people brought up to me, saying the president is only saying this because he doesn't believe he could win in a mail-in vote. We don't know any of that to be true. Again, I think the key word here is, or phrase, wait and see. They're doing the work, they're putting in the time, they're peacefully protesting. It's going to take a little while to see how that plays out.
No doubt it will take some time, but as we've seen from the demonstrations out there, they are committed to the long-term strategy in all of this. You and I both spoke with leaders with Black Lives Matter, and they also recognize, too, that this is a long-term game when we talk about the advancement of people of color, protecting their safeties, making sure that institutional racism is shattered, and that everyone has equal opportunity under the law, and that people are also, at a very basic level, treated fairly, things that they're fighting for today. If you can explain to me the crowd, I'm curious about the makeup of the crowd. What are you seeing in terms of men, women, racial backgrounds?
Hey, Larry.
Yeah.
Larry, I'm with somebody who says white queers for Black lives. Can you talk to me about the need you feel inside of you to not only define who you are, but stand up for another defined group of people?
Yeah, I mean, Pride is a liberation movement, and this is a liberation movement, and it's only right that we're here, and we can't have a celebration this June until we fight this fight.
And how do you feel about this all happening on the first day of Pride Month?
I mean, I don't know. If this is the time that we have to address it, this is the time we're going to do it.
Where are you from?
I live in D.C.
Now, have you been to multiple nights of the protest, or is this your first night?
This is the first night I've been out.
And what is the vibe that you've been feeling? How have you been feeling with the people?
I think people feel really powerful, and I'm happy to be here.
It's a question I've been asking a lot of people. Is there something that you need to see in order to feel comfortable not protesting anymore, to feel comfortable going back home and saying, what I did here made a difference?
That's a really hard question to answer. I don't know if I have an answer, to be honest.
Then what exactly brought you here?
I mean, Black people in our country are facing incredible injustices. Anti-Blackness in our police forces has not been addressed, and countless Black people are being killed, and it's not stopping.
How do you feel about how far are we? We're 10 minutes away from curfew. Last night there was a very aggressive scene here with tear gas and police pushing people back. Are you feeling comfortable staying here until 7 o'clock, or are you going to retreat?
I don't know. I'll decide in a second.
Okay, well, stay safe either way. Thank you for joining us. Larry, I've heard from so many people today that say, you know what? I wasn't sure if I was going to stay past curfew, but because there are so many people around me, I've decided that I'm going to stick it out and just see. A message to people who are at home or maybe watching on their cell phones, it does get very intense very quickly. We're about 50 feet from the gates in front of the president's, in front of Lafayette Park. I just want people to understand how dangerous it can get for them, Larry. Is that something that you've been hearing from other reporters around town?
Well, we've certainly seen over the past few days that this can take a turn rather quickly. Yesterday took a turn unexpectedly because we saw police get aggressive with protesters and try to disperse the crowd earlier than when the mayor's curfew order went into effect at around 6:45 before the president made his way over to St. John's Church. If we will see something like that today, not exactly sure. Again, we're about 9 minutes from when that curfew clock does in fact tick. But Ardian, I want to know about the crowd specifically. Tell me about the crowd. Are we seeing men, women, black, white? What is the makeup of the group that we're seeing tonight?
It is wildly diverse, Larry. Just at an eye shot, I see Caucasians, I see teenagers, I see parents. In this exact section, I would say it's mostly white and younger, but even within that, there is some diversity here in terms of, I'm sure, socioeconomic background, but if we talk about LGBT community, straight, there's a whole smattering of people that are here just to make sure that their voices are heard. You're hearing them right now chant, "Don't shoot." Their hands are up in the air. They're saying, "Don't shoot." But really, the concern right now should be about their security when it comes to pepper spray being sprayed in what could be 8 minutes, Larry. Let me walk you around the crowd just a little bit with Ferland to give you an idea of who we have. Like I was telling you, a lot of young people. I saw you here earlier. Can you talk to me about what brought you out here tonight?
I guess I just wanted to come out and show my support. I think it means something if everyone pitches in. I mean, everyone's got a role to play, and you should be out here supporting people that need it, especially with what's going on right now.
Have you been active in protests in the past?
I went to a couple. Was it like Sunday I went out for a little bit. But before that, I guess just general stuff. I've been living in D.C. for 4 years, so since the Trump era began, unfortunately, and little protests here and now, but no, I wouldn't say like I'm an organized protest or anything that they try to say with like, oh, the people that are coming out here are all like Antifa or that kind of stuff. It's just, normal, like I'm a 9-to-5 guy who live and work here in the city, and it's important I come out here for my friends.
Did you come with friends? Who are you here with?
No, I just came here by myself today. But I guess in general, just to I don't know, it was just something I thought about a lot. Like a lot of my coworkers, a lot of my friends are black, and I need to come out here and do something for them. I got my privilege, I got all that, but
that's something that we talked about a lot today is white privilege. What does that mean to you, and how are you trying to change how you are in society to make sure that you don't show your white privilege?
For me at least, it's like I can go through life without having to worry about, as much as other people do. Like, I'm a runner, I go out and run, and the worst I have to worry about is maybe someone saying like, run Forrest run, or like nice shorts faggot, but like, I don't have to worry about someone like some lunatic chasing me down and gunning me. Like, it's just that kind of thing. And notice, you get treated differently. Like I could go around after curfew and probably get asked where I live, that kind of thing. And it's not like, oh, he's suspicious, that kind of thing.
Have you ever been in a situation where you've had to stand up for one of your black friends or coworkers in a potentially racial environment?
Fortunately, no. I've been, I guess, pretty guarded when I brought up, pretty upper middle class upbringing, going to mostly white school for college. I live in a black neighborhood now, but it's pretty quiet.
Where do you live?
Edgewood, so over where the Rhode Island Ave metro station is, like north of Rhode Island Ave.
You said you grew up in a middle class neighborhood, upper middle class. What were the conversations that your parents were having with you that created the man that we have now, who comes out to a protest to stand up for Black lives that matter?
I mean, both my parents were from the South, so they grew up, like, one of my mom's early memories was, like, when integration was happening, and, what is it, because she was born in 59, and that started in earnest in, like, about the mid-60s, so she, you know, noticed little things, and I guess, you know, still, you know, mostly different. We lived in a mostly white suburb, but, you know, I ran track. I had a lot of black teammates, like all you know.
But you never had to, did you ever have to think about race growing up? Was it something that you actively thought
we
about?
just, like, noticed that. I went to, like, the first church I was baptized in was mostly minority, and then after that one started, like, the congregation started dispersing, not as many people going to church. Then we went to, like, a mostly white church, and, you know, you notice kind of differences with that.
They say that Sundays are some of the most segregated days of the week, one of the most segregated days of the week. Larry, I just want to time check for you. We are 4 minutes away from curfew. This crowd hasn't gotten any smaller, by my estimation, over the last 15 minutes that we've been talking. My anxiety for everyone else is going up. I know that I'm allowed to be here, but just the thought of
Absolutely, Adiana. It's interesting, you know, that we have so many people that are there right now. Again, we are about 4 minutes away from when the curfew is initiated. However, for those that need to still go out and vote, you can do that until 8 o'clock. That is when the polls close today. So in terms of Metro, that also closes at 8 o'clock tonight. Metro bus will be stopping at 9. Another night of demonstrations, as you can see right there. And as we see from the crowds that are growing at not only close to Lafayette Square, also on Capitol Hill, we've seen them out in our surrounding suburbs as well, that this group is not deterred by any means. Even though we saw some questionable things take place yesterday regarding the president being criticized for what many called a photo opportunity, it looks like that is not stopping anyone from making their way down to the Capitol, down to the White House, to make sure others understand about what is going on as it relates to the relationship between police and people of color. Our coverage continues online on our mobile app, and we'll kick things off coming up at 7 on the Q&A.
Good evening and welcome to
Hi, this is Larry.
Hi. Oh, guess I don't
Yes,
have
sir?
time to go to the bathroom, huh? Nope.
Good evening and welcome to this special edition of the Q&A. I'm Bruce Johnson at home practicing social distancing in Northwest Washington. Obviously, we're all over the continuing demonstrations that are going on right now. The curfew is ending as we speak at 7 o'clock. So this goes from just mass demonstrations. This now goes into the big leagues. It's called civil disobedience because there's a law now that says everybody has to be off the streets. And if you've been following us online or on air, you know that hundreds upon hundreds of people are still down there, mostly surrounding Lafayette Square, the White House, and that immediate area. Let's go right now to Mike Valerio for the very latest. Mike, what do you see and what are you hearing out there?
Hey, Bruce, good evening. Well, I'm just out of the shot of the camera to stage left, as it were, and right now we've reached the curfew point, and we want to talk about what is different than 24 hours ago. At this point yesterday, Secret Service, National Guard, federal law enforcement, military police were preparing to fire more flashbang canisters into the crowd. The question is, what will unfold now that the crowd has multiplied by a magnitude of several thousand more people than there were yesterday? So we've been here for about the balance of 3 hours or so as of now, and there is a taller fence in place that is increasing the, I would say, narrative, that's heightening the narrative of a fortress White House in front of us. So there is a higher fence that is preventing federal police and law enforcement from moving forward in that iconic image that we saw yesterday of Attorney General Bill Barr inspecting the crowd, and then the president and his administration, after those flash grenades went off, making their way to St. John's Church on the left-hand side of our position right now. So we've spoken to a whole host of people in the past 3 hours since we've been here. Very few have said that they anticipate leaving, and the president, meanwhile, there are rumblings from our reporting inside the West Wing, is trying or intent on making the District of Columbia an example of what can happen throughout the rest of the country. The president is uniquely positioned to be able to direct the army without the approval of the governor or in our case, the mayor, to implement military police to take control of the streets here. He doesn't have to ask Mayor Bowser's permission in the least bit. So we are preparing for law enforcement perhaps to come from the left and right-hand sides of our screen. But if there are flash grenades deployed, it is a frightening thought what will unfold if families are met with that sort of trauma for a second day in a row. Guys, back to you.
Mike Valerio, a couple of questions here. And obviously, if anything happens, the moment it happens, you take it away, interrupt me, and you just take it away and tell us exactly what's going on. Here's my question. You've got hundreds upon hundreds of people out there surrounding the White House, the federal enclave, if you will, down there. Everybody's prepared to stay. We're past the curfew. Are people prepared to be arrested? That's my question. I haven't heard the question asked, and I haven't heard anybody answer that. They want to stay. They're prepared to stay. Are they prepared to be arrested?
Bruce, if you're still, I just lost my connection for a second there, so I apologize if I missed your question. If you're still in our camera position, and I heard the second half of your question, are people prepared to be arrested? I think the answer is yes. From the huge number of people who were here this morning, we were met with two scenarios. Either there would be sort of a cry from the heart of taking a stand after, again, that trauma set in from yesterday, or the second scenario would be families wouldn't want to risk it. People would not bring their kids or loved ones to meet this moment in history. And we see that at least right now, a few minutes after 7, it seems to be the latter scenario of all of these families, friends, protesters meeting the moment here and not being deterred by the president's threat. So, just speaking with, I would say probably 24 people since 4 o'clock, the majority of them have said that they are prepared to meet this moment and be arrested. We will see what sort of force the president directs, and I was going to say the mayor directs, but she is in sharp conflict with the president. We will see what certainly seems to be the purview of federal law enforcement that will be directing what happens with this crowd here tonight.
But let's be clear on something. The president didn't have Lafayette Park cleared because people were in violation of the curfew. The president or
correct,
the attorney general moved on those people before the curfew took effect. So they were not in violation of any law. On the other hand, they were practicing their First Amendment rights. So just want to be clear on that. But right now, everybody down there is in violation of the mayor's curfew, which would make it civil disobedience. Not weighing in on it, whether it's right or wrong. Martin Luther King will tell you that civil disobedience is just when you're attacking and you're protesting an unjust law. We'll get back to you. Leslie, you want to take it from here?
Sure, Bruce. Our colleague Eric Flack is not far from where Mike Valerio is, also in Lafayette Square, also getting a different perspective. I mean, you are still really just enveloped by people that are out there, more tonight than were there yesterday. And I guess if there was one word to describe it, it sounds like, from listening to all of our colleagues on the ground, it's
absolutely correct. And, I was with you at 5:30, which was about an hour and a half ago, and I talked about how this crowd had thinned out and went to the Capitol. Well, now much of that crowd that went to the Capitol have come back and returned, and the crowd has swelled again. Right at 7 o'clock, right as this curfew goes into effect, almost making a statement to the federal police that are on that side of the fence, that are standing right over there, that they are going to defy that curfew, 7 o'clock, to voice their calls for justice for Mr. Floyd and their chants of Black Lives Matter. We have a crowd of people that is starting to thin a little bit, but that fence line, which we showed you earlier, one man was actually up on that fence for a time. People yelling at him to get down. I think there is a sentiment that many people don't want to provoke a confrontation with police rather than defy the order as a way of speaking up for their complete and utter distaste and disgust about what transpired. One interesting development we had, and a surprise demonstrator, you might say, Senator Elizabeth Warren, a former presidential candidate, now campaigning for Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden, showed up, mask over her face, with her husband and their dog, and walked through the crowd. And so I asked her, what was her message here today? Let's play some of that sound. What is your message, Senator Warren? What is your message by being here tonight?
Racism is wrong, and it is not enough for us to sit comfortably in our homes and to sit in our offices and say it's wrong. We need to be out on the front lines and calling out Donald Trump.
Should more people be following your lead and doing the same thing?
I think everyone should make their voices heard. Racism is wrong. It is not enough to be an ally. We must be anti-racist.
And so that's a sentiment shared, obviously, by the thousands of people standing outside Lafayette Square Park as we wait to see if there will be any unrest. I will point out the Homeland Security Police, the one officer who does have his baton in hand. That is the first time I have seen a stick or a baton displayed. There was a bit of a line of demonstrators standing across from that group of officers. They have now dispersed as everybody really kind of gathers on that now almost iconic Lafayette Square Park fence, standing toe-to-toe with those federal park police and those military police on the other side of that line. I think both sides almost at this point waiting to see if the others blink. We will continue to stand by and let you know what happens. Leslie?
All right. Thank you, Eric. We'll get back to you. Of course, St. John's Church was the center of all of the activity that we talked about a good deal yesterday with the president's photo op and what happened both before and after that. Our colleague Adiane Detil is over by St. John's, where it looks like they're handing out water and masks to the protesters.
Leslie, water, masks, goggles, snacks. I'm here with Jay. Jay, can you talk to me about who organized this? Oh, as he passes out the water.
It's a multi-community effort, from EMTs, freedom fighters, the church, everybody.
Will you be out here night after night?
This is my first day, but I'm going to be out here until, the last angels take it in.
I'm curious about how you were able to get through all of that traffic. That is a big question for me, sir.
I got in here extra early, 7 o'clock this morning. I started helping.
Got it. Leslie, there are a lot of people coming to grab, especially the milk. I'm just going to borrow this. They have milk in these containers so that you can squirt them over your face if you are hit with tear gas. It has been pretty peaceful so far. I believe we're about 10 minutes after the hour, but if they need them, the milk is right here. I spoke to a doctor 2 days ago who said that a 50-50 solution of milk of magnesia and water is the secure way to get the acidic tear gas out of your eyes very quickly. It's about the pressure. So have somebody else squirt that into your eyes and then use a dry paper cloth or a piece of fabric that hasn't been exposed to the tear gas to then dab it out of your eyes. You'll see around the city a bunch of medics. They'll normally have a cross. Sometimes they do not. Look out for those people. They will protect you or they will help triage if you have any problems. Just keep an eye out for that. Leslie, this is probably the third group of people that I have seen handing out snacks and water. The first time I've seen people handing out goggles and masks. People are coming prepared. They're learning. Excuse me, ma'am. Can you show me some of the masks that you're handing out? Yep. How many do you have left to hand out to people?
I'm not sure right now. We're just looking around.
Thank you very much. It seems like this is a real community effort. Jay was telling me that it's a group of EMTs and nurses that have come together to fund this. I also talked to one of my friends, Taylor, who just walked up a second ago saying she was donated $1,000 to pick up snacks, and they were just aimlessly walking around the city doing that. But what I will notice right now is that it seems to have cleared out a bit. I'm between 15th, between H and I, right in front of Lafayette Square. And honestly, the fact that there's this much space is interesting. Yesterday I heard it was very packed, and although there were potentially more people here tonight, maybe it was because the truck drove through. When that happened, there was a large parting of the seas that happened, and now it just hasn't filled back in. So I'm not sure, but I'm going to walk closer to the front to see what's happening.
All right, Adian, thank you for that. You know, what's interesting about what's evolving in this protest over these past 5 days, and perhaps what's different than some of the recent protests, is really this sharing of resources. People coming in, bringing food, bringing water, bringing milk, even establishing whole networks to donate money to bail out people who have decided that they want to be arrested for the cause of demanding justice, Lair.
It's certainly indication that this is a community effort. Our coverage continues after this.
Yeah. So he used ATF, he used the marshals, and he used partners. Yeah.
to clear this?
Yeah, in fact, Arlington County came to help, and Arlington County pulled all their people back. They said, we're not doing that. Arlington County pulled all their people back in. MPD pulled all their people. They were like, we're doing this, but he has enough. He's got all the ATM.
Yeah, no audio commercial to the
they did, man.
profanity.
I know. So, hey, did y'all hear? I got they shut down North EPT. You know Donovan? They moved him to Fair Lakes and gave him a desk job.
So just Dell's the only one, right?
Dell and Chip.
Who's Chip? I don't know.
He's her primary. Dell was the advanced guy. Me and Chip were her primaries. I was her secondary.
They got rid of Waltz.
They moved him to Space System.
They kept him?
No, yeah, they kept him. Yeah, they moved me to Space System. They kept me. So I work at the building in Sterling.
Oh, I thought you were not even working anymore.
I just do this side.
Oh, for the work. I thought you all weren't working.
Yeah, no, we all got. They didn't fire anybody. They just kept the team.
So you're just working building security?
No, I'm working clearances. Oh, paperwork. Yeah. They moved me to Sterling, gave me a fast raise, and I was like,
Hey, I'm Bruce Johnson. If you're just joining us, the curfew is now in effect. It went into effect a little over 15 minutes ago. There should be nobody out there on the city streets. But if you've seen our coverage before we went to commercial break, you see that hundreds upon hundreds of people are back down there, Lafayette Square, Lafayette Park, in defiance of the curfew. But unless I'm reading this wrong, they're really being defiant of the president who controlled the narrative at this time last night when he cleared the square, the park, and he marched through there under heavy guard, uniform, non-uniform, over to St. John's Church. Tonight, the masses are back, and this is their message to the president. We won't be moved. We've got something to say. We're protesting police brutality, the murder of George Floyd in Minnesota. Come get us if you want. They're not saying it, my words, paraphrasing, but the next move, you would think, the ball is now in the court of the president. Thus far, nothing has happened. No longer just a protest. This is civil disobedience because they are, in effect, breaking the law. Well, we want to go to Nathan Baca right now. Nathan, where are you and what are you seeing? What are you hearing?
Bruce, I'm on 17th and H Street, Vermont and H Street, and let me show you what's behind me now. There is kind of a strategy going on here because one of the chants, whose streets are streets, and what is happening here, the protesters are holding their ground. Now, the question is, if what happened yesterday happens again, then the police will be coming down streets like these and sweeping in. Now, we see this police line over here, but we do not see any motion that they are going to be moving in force. Those are Department of Homeland Security police, mostly just protecting one of their buildings, the Veterans Affairs office here. Now, moving on down over here, what we witnessed was that the protesters are saying that they need to consolidate in the center, and they're doing that for strength in numbers. They are protecting their flanks along H Street, this side, and then that side as well. They're protecting their two sides, west to east. But a lot of the protesters that were alongside this line here, where you see some of the police on that fence line, they have now consolidated in the middle. And that's actually part of a strategy. The strategy is basically coalesce in the center to make it harder to move this mass of people. Because honestly, if the police come, they won't be able to come well from the fence line because they actually have they'll need to open up the fence line. They can't go through the fence line. So, if the police come in through the streets, they'll be seen by the protesters along this side. But if they consolidate in the center, they can't come down from 16th Street because that area is pretty much owned by the protesters at this point. So the protesters is effectively, with strength in numbers, consolidated around the middle, and it doesn't look like they're going to be budging anytime soon. We've seen nothing but peaceful protest. We have not seen any sort of bottles or anything thrown over, as the U.S. Park Police said happened yesterday. Again, reporting live out here on 8th Street, Nathan Baca, WUSA 9.
All right, Nathan, I'll take it back from you. Let's go over to Mike Valerio, who is still over at Lafayette Park and Lafayette Square, that entire area. Mike, you were there yesterday as all of that unfolded around the president's photo op, the tear gassing of protesters. This is a far different scene tonight.
It is, and we're trying to reach into the West Wing for some of our context to see what's the calculus of why the president and the administration apparently haven't reacted to this so far, when he is eager to control the situation and control the narrative, control the visuals, as you saw yesterday, and especially since we saw such a huge and forceful pushback from the Episcopal Diocese of Washington, the Catholic Diocese of Washington, saying that it was a completely invalid photo opportunity when the Bible, from direct quote from them, for crying out loud, held it upside down and didn't even come to pray or interact with any religious leaders, one of whom we know very well and dearly, and was chased out. Her words, she said she ran out with her old lady reading glasses, her collar, after she was delivering medical supplies to Black Lives Matter protesters. But for the time being, we want to bring in our friend Garrison from Prince George's County, who's keeping us company. So Garrison, thanks for joining us. So you made your way from Prince George's, and sort of you're dealing with the same reality that we are. The curfew has passed, and what's going through your mind right now as you stay here?
Right now, keeping eyes open and just keeping my group around me at all times, making sure that everyone is safe. And if things start to happen, then things start to happen. But things will only happen because something happened.
Yeah. We were discussing earlier on the program about feeling prepared to be arrested or not. And what is going through your mind, Garrison, when you saw the forceful reaction from this administration yesterday and are thinking about what could possibly happen right now? Are you prepared for that prospect?
I'm prepared, but it's not something that I'm very scared of. I look towards the future, but I try to position myself in my mind in a way that we can all help each other and just keep each other safe.
And tell me why you're here. What's your own personal story? Everybody who comes has a reason for being here, for going up close to that fence. Tell me why this is so personal for you to be here.
Mr. Floyd looked like my brothers and me and my dad and my cousins, and I'm here for my family. I'm here for my friends. And I'm glad to have friends here with me now. So I'm blessed.
And what do you see? It's past 7 o'clock. We saw within the past few minutes over to my left, Black Lives Matter organizers handing out supplies, water, helmets to people who wanted to stay. What are, Garrison, some of the things that you'll remember, some indelible impressions that you have of this moment that you've seen?
I'd say all the different faces and nationalities that I have seen here. Seeing people from everyone here for something like this. This is what life is about. This is not a one-time thing. This is life. We stand hand in hand. We have to. We have to. We have no other choice.
Garrison, well said. Thank you for joining us. Ma'am, did you want to come up and talk with us briefly? Come on over. Leslie, we're going to have one more person.
Of course.
Friend of Garrison right here. And I didn't get your name. You're live on Channel 9 right now, but tell me your name.
My name is Janki.
Janki, so tell me, what are your impressions? We're past curfew. There are still a whole host of people behind us.
Mm-hmm.
What is going through your mind for the people who are watching at home right now?
I'm a little nervous, but I feel very strong and kind of powerful about being here. I think it's absolutely the right thing to do. I know the curfew is in place, but the way that the protesters were treated yesterday, I think it's very important that we're here to say that it's not okay. We're here being peaceful, and it's necessary to speak up for injustices.
Can I ask what went through your mind when you saw the president's gambit of trying to accomplish that photo shoot at the expense of, as we've been told from protesters and families' point of view, re-traumatizing so many people who were here? What did you think as you saw that emotion?
I absolutely agree. I think it was traumatizing for a lot of people. I think I was personally very disappointed. I also thought it was poorly planned. I think the protesters, if they wanted to take up that space, the protesters deserve some notice, some chance to get away from tear gas and rubber bullets, which can actually cause permanent injury. So it was disappointing and sad to see overall.
So you're here with Garrison, or are you here with anybody else?
Yeah, I'm here with my brother.
Your brother?
Mm-hmm,
okay, is there anything else you want to add about your impressions about what we see here?
We need to be here. It's a great opportunity to speak up for Americans all across the country that need our help.
Thank you so much for your time. We're doing this now. I appreciate it. So Leslie, there you go, a sample of personalities who are out here. So just give a double high five to Garrison off camera. That was amazing. So this is, there is some sense of surprise that is setting in, that we haven't had any kind of rumblings of what is yet to come. At 6 o'clock this time, or at 6 o'clock yesterday, we had the sort of haphazard announcement come from the White House press office that the president was going to address the nation from the Rose Garden. So there were rumblings that something was going to happen. I'll only add that we are keeping our eye on the fence, which, it's very hard to see from our point of view because we want to keep a safe distance. But one of the things that we're watching is if things escalate, if that fence begins to give way. People have been sort of trying to rattle the fence, for lack of a better way of putting it, when there were certain episodes that they either wanted to speak to the law enforcement personnel who are behind the fence. We're going to see whether or not it holds back this crowd. I'm not going to venture a guess whether it does or not. One other thing that we're going to look for, earlier in the afternoon, a Department of Homeland Security police officer actually took a knee behind us, and the crowd went wild, but it seemed to be a very individual act. Nobody else followed suit, and the crowd had a palpable air of disappointment once nobody repeated that officer's action from the Department of Homeland Security. We're going to see if that pressure from the law enforcement who are holding their perimeter persists until something happens to disperse this crowd, if anything. Leslie?
Yeah, the protesters are making a statement. The question is, are the right people listening? And what will happen from here? We're going to take a break right now, and we'll be right back with our coverage.
Yeah, he's at Garrison Smith.
Wait, Jared, how do you know Garrison? How do you know Garrison? That's hilarious.
I used to private security.
Oh. Okay. You
have good guys here. They're good guys.
That means a lot. That means yesterday was. Did you mention? Were you here yesterday?
I was not.
Yesterday, he was like manhandled by my security guard, like a big muscular guy. I was like, I am okay with you doing this because I'll tell you, like, the Horsemen and.
Yeah, you clean the back of your backpack, but he was hit like 5 times with pepper balls in his backpack as he was running.
Oh, man, you got lucky.
Yeah, I thank God I had the sun.
This thing's been saving my butt. Because when that pepper, the tear gas hits.
But anyway, sorry to.
Are you a consistent correspondent?
Yeah, I usually cover the White House work for the CBS affiliate here, Channel 9. So.
Get it in there.
But this is just, an outgrowth of covering the White House, vector of outrage.
But then it'll get on your skin, so you do this.
We're here to stand off with them. Now, it is unclear that there is any way for them to come through that gate. There's not a door that we can see, per se, but there is movement behind that line, so that's what we are keeping our eye on right now. I'm going to let James continue to have the camera on that line as I interview some of the protesters, including a young lady here who has come from Northern Virginia, and you have been here all nights of this protest. What are your impressions of how today has gone?
I'm proud of all the protesters. Honestly, everyone has mobilized together and it's been really organized. Everyone is offering cold water, snacks, hand sanitizer, gloves, masks. Everyone's there's a makeshift poster little area. So everyone is being really organized today. I'm proud of all of the protesters. Everyone's being really peaceful. And as it's been every single day, there has been no violence, in my opinion, and what I've witnessed, except for when the police attack. So,
what are your impressions, and how is your feeling right now about these police officers mobilized? Is there any concern on your part? And I wonder, with a curfew now in place, are you prepared to go to jail tonight?
I understand the curfew is set in place, and I'm not trying to say I'm against following the laws. I'm a law-abiding citizen, but I'm going to stay here and continue my right to protest, which are my constitutional rights. And I'm going to stay here regardless of if I'm met with military police and U.S. Park Police who are in full gear, weapons ready, tear gas and mace ready, and all I have is a poster. So I don't know how that's threatening them, but I'm going to stay here.
Our anchor, Bruce Johnson, actually has a question. I'm going to let him ask a question. I'll relay it to you. Bruce, what would you like to ask?
Well, Eric, you, I think, have started my question. It's a question I'd like to ask to just about everybody down there, if you're able. Are they prepared to be arrested? It's now civil disobedience. It would be, I think, a misdemeanor. I'm going to guess that some of these people might be participating in their first major demonstration like this. Certainly a lot of them, or probably none of them, have been in the kind of demonstration where we've seen the violence that surrounded them. But how far are they prepared to go with this? That's what I'm really curious about, because they're so young.
Bruce, yeah, our anchor is really interested. Do you feel that others are prepared to go as far as you are to actually be arrested tonight? Is there that type of resolve amongst this crowd, if these police officers come out, to be arrested alongside of you, which you say you are willing to do?
I think everyone made that decision coming out here. Everyone knew that there's a curfew at 7 o'clock, and no one's coming out here ready to go to jail necessarily. I'm not coming out here thinking about the jail, but I'm ready to stand for what I believe in. And if jail is where I'm taken, I'm not going to let that stop me from voicing what I need to voice.
Yeah, just a head nod. Are others here ready to be arrested tonight, or is that not something?
So I'll say something.
Please.
People didn't come out here to get arrested. So let's start there. That question is not a valid question. The question that you should be asking is, every Fed, every policeman, every person that's swore in to protect America and America's citizens, are you guys standing up against injustice? Because there should be no reason why we as protesters are peacefully protesting and are getting arrested, while the 4 police officers that murdered and killed, and it was obvious by the personal autopsy, are still not prosecuted. So once we find out why that's happening, then you can ask yourself, oh, now I understand. What is the true reason of why people are getting arrested? Okay? That's why. It's because we're getting beat, we're getting killed. We've been brought from our home 400 years ago, and they're still getting killed and beat today. While there's white children that are roaming around, same age, 14-year-olds, just by black people, side by side, but are still getting let free. Like how they did in Atlanta, where they tear gassed and killed, well, they didn't kill, they tear gassed, and they shot rubber bullets at a vehicle with college students and still let the white people go, and they were right in front.
We honor your message and your experience, and I think you answered it well. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So Bruce, I think her point was an interesting and important one, saying that despite the curfew, which we all know exists, they're not looking to get arrested, but they're ready to get arrested. Is that a distinction?
That's not what we said, though. That's not what we said. We said we didn't come out here to get arrested. We're out here because the 4 people the 4 police officers that should have got prosecuted are still not prosecuted for killing somebody in cold blood, called murder. So we're out here peacefully protesting because it's wrong. We're not out here to get arrested, because peaceful protesters should not be arrested because they are exercising the First Amendment right.
Respect that. All right, thank you. Obviously, a lot of passions, and we're just going to kind of show you this line. The movement that we saw out here does seem to have died down, so to speak. There has been a certain and clear organization and mobilization right here behind this fence line, but beyond that, really nothing much has transpired. So we're going to stay right here and keep an eye on that. And obviously, if there are continued developments, if something happens, Bruce, we're going to get in touch with the producers back there. We're going to let you know immediately and bring you pictures of it.
Okay, Eric Flack, that's excellent information. Those 2 women were excellent. We now know, without any quivering, without any confusion, exactly where they stand. We're clear. Eric, thanks a lot for that. Leslie?
You know, when you cover a protest, the key is to listen more than you speak. And Adian, you have been walking through the crowd, listening to a lot of people share some really personal stories about what brought them there today, why they came today. Many folks who were there yesterday, some who witnessed what happened to protesters yesterday and said they needed to be present today.
That is exactly right, Leslie. I've been walking around for the last couple of hours. Right now I'm in front of St. John's Church at 15th and 8th Street. And I noticed that there was a group of people with their bicycles. Honestly, more people on bicycles than I've seen the last couple of nights. And I was curious why that was the case. So I came up to Rebecca. Rebecca, can you talk to me about whether you brought them here or picked them up here, and why did you have them tonight?
I brought them into the protest. I wanted to get into the city the fastest way I can, or closer to the White House the fastest way I can. I wanted to be here, especially before curfew. I heard they're blocking off entrances, so I just wanted the fastest entrance to here.
And did you pick these up in your neighborhood, or do you live close by?
No, I picked them up over near 16th and P, so not too far at all.
And are you prepared tonight, if things get a little bit chaotic, to potentially be arrested? Is that something that you've considered?
Yes, yeah. I'm here for the cause, and it is what it is. That happens to some people, and you have to be prepared and ready for it.
And I see that they have a bottle of milk here, a gallon of milk. I'm not sure if it's yours, but Leslie, there have been a number of drop-offs of supplies. I know that I showed you one earlier today. Did you pick that up for yourselves just to be safe? Is that yours?
No, this is not mine, but I have seen a lot of people have been tear gassed, and the feeling of camaraderie is really strong out here. A lot of people are bringing milk for other people, milk, hand sanitizer, masks, goggles, anything you could need.
And I noticed you didn't come with a whole lot on you.
No.
What happens if something happens to you? Have you considered your options here? I'm just concerned.
I'm more worried about the issue at hand. Whatever happens, happens, and I'll deal with that once I get to it. But right now, this is really important, and I wanted to show up.
Can you talk to me about what it would take for you to say, you know what, I've seen the change that I came here for, and now I don't think we need any more protests. I have tangible evidence that my work did something.
I need these cops arrested in jail not for their rightful deaths. George Floyd died for no reason. I need that officer behind bars for the rest of his life, period. That's when I feel like I'll have enough evidence that what I did here, I'm satisfied.
Do you have any children?
No.
Is it something that you've considered?
Yes, yeah.
Have you thought about the conversations you would have with your future children to prepare them for being a Black person in society and what that means?
You know, I haven't, but I do know that that's going to have to be something that my kids learn from a young age. It just is what it is. As Black people in America, that's something we can't avoid, even at that young age. So I'm prepared for that. I'm ready for that. Yeah.
I was wondering if it seems almost silly to ask if you've experienced racial inequality in your life, but is that the main cause for being here today? Is it George Floyd specifically, or the overarching picture?
It's everything. George Floyd is almost a tipping point, it feels like right now, but it's everything. It's growing up in America. Of course, I've experienced racism from police and from other people, and so it's really important to show up. This is real. This is happening, whether it happens to you or not. It is happening. It is a thing that's real, and it's important to speak out on it.
Thank you so much. Leslie, before I turn this over back to you, I just want to notice that it has actually thinned out quite a bit in the last hour. How far are we from when it started? 40 minutes ago, curfew started. And while there are not a lot more bikes than there were before, honestly, this much walking space is novel. This was not here before. So I'm curious if people are going home or if they're moving to another part of the city. I'm not sure what you're seeing with the other reporters out there, but over here it is thinning out.
All right, Adian Detil, thanks so much. You know, protest is one part of our democracy. Voting is the other part. It is primary day in D.C. and Maryland, and regardless of the fact that there's a curfew at 7 o'clock, for most people, you can still vote, and the polls close in about 20 minutes. If you're in line by 8 o'clock, you'll be permitted to vote. We'll take a break.
like to run out of batteries so we can go home. And that's not right now. I'm with you. This is a bad tactical decision. Here's the thing. As long as it stays static like this and nobody's tearing shit up or doing anything, they're not gonna escalate their level of violence either. If it stays like this, they can force them to do it. Well, I don't know if that's gonna happen, but I'd like to be able to cover lives if that was as opposed to just wasting batteries now. I don't
Larry, right now we're at the intersection of Vermont and H, and for the last hour or so, people have been up on this fence, just looking at the officers who are on the other side. It's going to be a little hard to look past this link fence, but you can see hundreds of officers, U.S. Park Police, men and women in fatigue. They're staring back at protesters like Elsie. Elsie, I was looking at you from the behind here, looking at the protesters. Tell me what's going through your mind as you look at them just on the other side of this fence.
Really just trying to find a sense of humanity between us both. We've been here for hours and haven't got any type of response from them, really asking them to kneel with us, asking us to give any type of human reaction, but we haven't been getting anything. So it's kind of frustrating, but I do feel good with all these people around me and all of the support that's here. It's definitely...
When you say you're looking for a sense of humanity, tell me why is that important?
I feel like just in order for us to really deal with some of the racial issues that we've been dealing with as Americans, we have to first be able to see every human as a human and know that those human lives need to be valued for what they are as humans. And if we can't get to that root value of a human life for all people, then we don't get to the root of the problem. So when they can see my brother or father as a human as much as they can see their brother or father, then we can start a conversation of what structures in society and what policies we need to get to make America better.
Yeah, we're way past curfew now.
Yes.
Nothing's happened.
Nothing's happened now.
How much is that in the back of your head? Just, is it possible? Or
I'm actually out here with my mom, so that's one of the things that does make me a little nervous, because if they do start to round people up and the crowds get rowdy, I don't want her to feel unsafe or anything. I'm not really worried about it at all. I'm totally fine with being arrested and for the cause.
It's amazing just looking at you, looking at all of that, and you're saying you're not intimidated at all.
I won't say I'm not intimidated, I am, but it's like it's beyond the point where I can't afford to be. Mm-hmm. Where we are really just, it's something has to change. It's been too long. So the intimidation has to sit at the back, mm-hmm. and our need for freedom is at the forefront right now. Our need for justice.
Well, thank you so much, Elsie. And yeah, once again, you can just see that formation there. The shields have been placed down the entire time that we've been looking, since we've been back here for the last 45 minutes to an hour. It's not an aggressive stance. They're just waiting. And as we said, curfew way past over right now, so we haven't seen a replay so far of what happened yesterday. But everyone who's up on this fence is looking for some reaction from the men and women who are on the other side of the fence. And as Elsie had just put it, what she's looking for is humanity. And it's interesting just to hear that. I mean, in this entire discussion about police brutality and things like that, that's what a lot of people say that they're looking for, is that they want humanity from the other side, the police. Larry?
John, thank you so much. You know, it's interesting because the sense of humanity, you know, when we think about what they're asking for is a very basic thing. Treat me like you treat everyone else. It is something that we've heard from the demonstrators. It's something that we've heard from the activists. It's something that we've heard from their supporters, and they are committed to seeing it through. The situation now, to some extent, dire. That's what we're hearing from the people there, that at this point, they have to be aggressive in their request and seeing this through, because going back, as I heard from a member of Black Lives Matter, is deadly. That they can no longer go back to doing what was the status quo, because for them, they feel that it does nothing in terms of enriching their lives, protecting their families or themselves. Live images right now from downtown, and you can see the number of protesters that have been out there for hours now. As we've heard from John Henry, the posture from law enforcement has not been aggressive, but they are gathering, and we do see a lot more of them closer to the gates. Leslie.
All right, Larry, we've got Dr. Sherry Williams on the phone with us. She's an assistant professor in the School of Communication at American University and talks a great deal about this intersection of social media, social justice, mass media, and how people of color use and are represented in these mediums. Dr. Williams, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me, Leslie.
So you've been looking at these pictures, and we've talked a good deal about this whole idea of protest, and what is a hallmark of things in this country is nothing meaningful has been accomplished here without protest.
Absolutely. I mean, whether it was women wanting to get the right to vote or folks wanting the Vietnam War to end, people took to the streets to make sure that this would happen. And this is really just a continuation of what has always happened in this country. People showing up and demanding justice, putting their bodies on the line so that those in power can see that things need to change, that inequity is no longer the status quo that they're going to live by, and really demanding for injustice and inequality to be dismantled.
You know, so many more people, so many faces, so many diverse backgrounds, so many stories we've heard in these 5 days of this sort of prolonged unrest in the city. And you and I had a chance to talk a little bit earlier, and you said that some people are experiencing now, or maybe seeing it differently, the sort of systematic inequality that African Americans have experienced in this country for centuries.
Yeah, so I think what the COVID-19 crisis has done with all of these job losses and all of these hurdles to get health care that people need and other things that American citizens should always have access to. In the past couple months, in the past almost 3 months, we've seen that COVID has put up barriers to this. But these are barriers that have always existed for Black people in this country. So I think that what is happening now in terms of how this global pandemic is affecting people here in the United States has also awakened people to some of the inequality and injustice that folks face and how these systems were designed to lock certain people out.
So at this point, we know there are at least 140 cities around the United States that have experienced some form of protest after the death of George Floyd. And a lot of times we talk about police brutality as it, comes to Black men, but there are a lot of Black women who have been impacted by this, including Breonna Taylor, who was killed 2 months before George Floyd in her home. And there have been no arrests in that case. And so we've heard people talking about that as well, that this is not just about George Floyd, that this is about the many other unarmed African Americans who have lost their lives to the hands of police-involved violence.
Right, that's absolutely true. I mean, when we're talking about police brutality as it happens to people in this country, we tend to focus on cisgender black men, and that's obviously a problem. But we're doing black people as a whole and people as a whole an injustice because black women experience police brutality too. As you mentioned, Breonna Taylor was killed 2 months before George Floyd. I mean, also Tony McDade, a transgender black man, was killed by police in Florida last week. There's a tremendous amount of police brutality that transgender people experience, and especially transgender people of color. And I mean, this is the beginning of Pride Month, and we know that the Stonewall Rebellion was really essentially people across the LGBT spectrum protesting police brutality. That's really how the whole Stonewall Rebellion started. So police brutality against black men is the center of this conversation, but it really shouldn't be, because black women, even black girls, we were, if you all recall, a few years ago, DeJara Becton was body slammed at a pool party by a police officer in Texas. We've had instances like in South Carolina where a young girl was ripped from her desk and her body was flung across the classroom by a school resource officer. So there are a myriad of ways that black women and girls are experiencing police violence. Daniel Holtzclaw was an officer in Oklahoma City who was convicted of raping 13 black women while on duty. Like, he was a serial assaulter of black women. But that's something that happened in 2015, 2016, when this country was having a discussion about police brutality, but we weren't having that discussion. So it's important for us to understand that this brutality that's happening, it's not just against black men. It's against black women. It's against transgender women, people all across the LGBT spectrum as well.
Before I let you go, Dr. Williams, there's something about this protest and how widespread it is, not just in the United States, but really across the world, that feels different.
Yeah, but also as we think about this decade, pretty much every summer this decade has been filled with some sort of turmoil associated with either police violence from the state in some sort of way, whether it was in 2018 with this administration putting immigrant kids and adults in cages, whether it was the Charleston church shooting, Ferguson erupting after Mike Brown's body laid in the street for hours after being killed by policemen, Philando Castile, Alton Sterling, the Pulse nightclub shooting. It seems like every summer, every year since 2013, there has been real material violence that has been committed against people of this country, people of color in this country, black people specifically, but also people across the board. Even some of these policies, this Muslim ban and the Islamophobia that we're experiencing in this country, all of this is related. All of this is connected. So if you think about people who are 18 and 21 who are out in the streets right now, they've been growing up since 2013 throughout this decade experiencing this, right? So now that they are of age, they've learned more about this, they've seen it, they're experiencing it, they are demanding that it stop. And that's what we're seeing right now.
Dr. Sherry Williams, assistant professor in the School of Communication at American University, thanks so much for your time this evening. These protesters have said they are done being quiet, no justice, no peace. They believe they are on the right side of history by being on the streets today. Bruce?
Thanks, Leslie. Two things. First, at the polls, lots of people standing in line to vote tonight, and they're going to be able to stand in line until they're able to vote. Delia Gonzalez has let us know there are over 275 people at a polling place that she's familiar with in her neighborhood. But this is what I've got. Somebody at a high level who has been in communication tonight with both D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser and Police Chief Pete Newsham. This person comes away convinced that D.C. police are of the frame of mind. They will allow the peaceful demonstrators, what we're seeing right now on our screen, they will allow this to go on until the people dissolve themselves and go home. They have no plans right now to move in and forcibly put people under arrest for violating the curfew. That's one thing. That person that I talked to cannot speak for the White House nor federal law enforcement. So you're talking two different paths here. D.C. apparently willing to stand down unless there's violence against our officers, against police out there. Then they will proceed to do what they need to do, not just against those perpetrating the violence, but probably clear all the streets at that point. But right now, they're prepared to allow this to play out, allow people to protest. No violence. Everything's good. They cannot speak for the White House. We're trying to get word from the White House. Nobody's returned a phone call at this point to tell us what are the plans of the Trump administration and federal law enforcement. We do know that throughout the city, we've got federal law enforcement they've secured. I'm told it's a 2-block area going north, east, west, south. From the White House. You've got people in military uniform, Army, you've got federal DEA agents and others. None of the people in military uniform is armed at this point, and there is no intention to arm them. But again, nothing planned by D.C. police, nor the mayor at this point. We don't know what's planned from the Trump administration. We're going to Eric Flack at this point?
All right, Bruce. I think we're going to wind things down now as we begin to approach 8 o'clock. We should tell people we'll be continuing to follow everything that happens tonight. You can count on us here at WUSA 9 and follow our alerts on WUSA9.com, on the WUSA 9 app, and our Facebook page for the latest information. Again, there is still time to vote in this city. If you are in line by 8 o'clock, you can do it. It is your civic duty, from protest to voting. Those are the ways that we uphold our democracy, and we'll be here with you every step of the way. We'll see you online and at 11 o'clock tonight for the very latest.